Ryan Day, we're sitting here basically roughly a month after you and your team won a national championship for the first time ever. And is it amazing to you how much work you've put in since then? And meaning, have you had a chance to exhale at all?
A little bit. But when you say a month, it seems like a lot longer than that. I think the last week is probably the first time it really set in and kicked in. There was a lot to do after the game. You know, we had the week leading up to the celebration, and then we had some staff changes. We had recruiting.
Yeah.
So I kind of laughed when I said, you know, once the last piece of confetti fell, it was on to the next year. And but no, you know, we had a great mat drill today, and the guys have been working hard, getting ready for spring practice.
Yeah. I've got like a 50,000 questions, you know me and stuff, but I wanted to ask you this. Is it, I put in perspective certain things. I've been around covering this team for 41 years and stuff. That's the greatest coaching job, I do believe, as I've said, from December the 1st to January the 20th. And when you look back on it, what was just that, in my opinion, it was the team taking ownership of the team. I mean, the players taking ownership. I mean, that meeting's one of the great moments, I think, in coaching history. Because you could have gone, you know, any way you wanted to go, like Varsity Blues. You could have been like John Voight, you know, and said, we're going my way, and you get run out of the locker room, right? You understand what I'm saying? But when you look back on it, was that meeting the impetus that just kind of like solidified everything and got y'all on the right track?
I mean, it certainly has got a lot of attention over the last couple of months. But I think when you experience a loss such as that, you have to come together and bring everybody together. And I think, now going into my 7th year here at Ohio State as the head coach, you realize that when you do go through adversity, there's a lot that comes with that at Ohio State. There's narratives, there's opinions, and you have coaching staff, you have the players, you have the players' parents, you have the media. Yeah. And I think once these narratives can get, continue to almost like get their own life of their own of what's real and what isn't.
Like a freight train.
Yeah, like a freight train. And I think you got to bring everybody together and recognize what really happened coming out of the game, but then also have a plan for, moving forward. And, coming off of that game, it was important for everyone to kind of air out, what they believed and talk through some of those things and everyone take accountability and then, all right, but the most important thing was 2 things. One, how are we going to move forward? How are we going to get these things addressed? What are we going to do to get them fixed? Because when you're talking about a season where there's 16 games, it's different than it used to be. It's a longer road, and you have to make adjustments along the way. It can't just be the same thing for 16 straight games. It doesn't work that way. And then also there has to be a belief, and there has to be leadership and guys that step up that believe that these things are going to get changed and believe that we can run the table. I think both those things happened coming out of the game.
Yeah, but I've always been intrigued about championship seasons. Is there is no book or no guidelines checklist on buttons to be pushed, because every championship team is its own machine, right? And obviously you benefited greatly from having maturity from the guys who came back, right. But also Jeremiah Smith, Caleb Downs, the maturity above, older than their years, you know what I mean, to a certain extent. Guys like that all chiming in, right? But is it just to see that come together as you look back on it now? Is it just, is it refreshing, or is it, how do I do this again? I mean, you're still, or are there all those thoughts going on in your brain?
Yeah, well, I also think about how close we had been in 19.
Yeah.
20 was a funky year. I don't feel like in that final game we were really ourselves. Justin came off of that hit. We had, an illness with the defensive line. We lost Trey Sermons on the first play, and then the run in 22 against Georgia. I mean,
yeah.
So, you're never that far away in those type of situations as much as you think. And I think you have to understand the process, and not get focused so much on the result. And then there were certain things that we needed to put into place going into last year. And it's the same thing that we're going through right now. You got to put the right people into the right seats, and then you got to make adjustments along the way. And I think we did that. But I also think, to your point, it was great to have mature guys, as part of this team. And I've said before, when you're at Ohio State, you have to walk different. You got to move different. There's a higher expectation of you. You're under a bigger microscope. And because of that, it raises everybody's game. You know, you just see our guys and how mature they are. And if you're not mature, you kind of stick out. I think it's part of how we recruit, but I also think it's part of Ohio State.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, and like you said, from one year to the next, it's not like refilling an ice tray, you know, and then the freezer makes it happen. I mean, as you look back on that team, just real quick, what stood out to me, like the years you named off, the games y'all were in, what stood out were the plays that were or weren't made, because finally it comes down to making a play. You've said that all along. I mean, I don't think people understand that. Y'all's idea is to get them out there, put them in position, whatever, but guys have to make plays. Wow, the postseason. Is there one that was your favorite?
Well, I think there's just like these snapshots in time, and then you forget other plays that were made.
Yeah.
You know, there were so many great plays, but you know, the third Jeremiah was big. The breakup on third down by Jordan Hancock. You know, before they missed the field goal. The 70-yard run by Quinshawn. The run he scored on where he stiff-armed the defender.
Yeah.
The play design to Jeremiah on the first touchdown, and the response of that drive. So that in the national championship game, I mean, the three plays that stick out in the Cotton Bowl obviously is what they call it, Scoop and Sawyer or whatever the heck it is. The stand, there where, and especially the second down play where we strung it out. But I also think about the first down play because most teams are just kind of run it vertical. Well, I think the reason why I say this a lot. You're playing against your opponent, but you're also playing against the next opponent when they watch your film.
Yeah.
And because of some of the goal line stands that we had that year, I think once they ran it inside on first down, they tried to get the ball to the outside on the second down, and then Lathan, IGB, and Caleb were just right there, which was a huge play. And then to me, the screenplay at the end of the half, and then the fourth and two run by Will Howard in that game. I mean, there's so many things you can look at in the Rose Bowl to go back to. Some great plays, like Lathan Ransom's hit, just filling the hole. Like you could hear that all across.
Like a linebacker.
Yeah, in the San Gabriel Mountains, you could hear the crack of that.
That goes.
The execution play design on the throwback to Jeremiah. We got, Will did a great job. Protection was great. Got the whole defense running one way and throwing it back the other way. The way that we executed the one long run to Travion where we had two pulling linemen. We had Carnell going out the other way to the field after we had already thrown that same play to Jeremiah. And then, so I thought those were all great plays. In the Tennessee game, man, that was kind of just a blur early on in the game. Early on, the great catch, by Travion, and the two big balls to Jeremiah were huge in that game.
Yeah.
And obviously on defense, I think you just think about all the different sacks that we had. We had a lot of sacks in those couple games. So
I mean, guys rose to the occasion, basically. I mean, it was like watching a wave. I mean, it really was continual wave, beginning of the Tennessee game on and stuff. And as you think back to it now, does it give you goosebumps a little bit? Because I don't mean to spend this whole time reflecting on that, but it is, it's one of those special seasons, like you said. Teams that come close don't have reunions. Teams that win it all do, right? And but to just see that team come together in the lowest of times, that's got to be as gratifying as any play you remember, right?
That's it, yeah. Because we live in an era where it's extremes.
Yes.
You're the greatest in the world and you're the worst in the world, and I guess that was kind of the way that the end of our season kind of was, but we never felt that way. We were always just trying to become the best version of ourselves, and I think you just have to be real about when you look at the last game of the regular season. We missed 2 field goals. We didn't field 2 kicks. We threw an interception in the red zone. We threw an interception coming out. We did not do a good job of getting the ball in the perimeter to our skill guys.
Yeah.
And you start recognizing these things.
It's like pass drop in that era. Yeah, too. Yeah. You
look at the Oregon game midway through the season, we gave them a possession on the goofy squib kick.
Yeah.
We fumbled on our own, inside our own 20-yard line. We did not get aligned on defense fast enough, and it didn't have a great plan there, quite honestly. Just like, we didn't have a great plan, in the rivalry game at the end of the season on offense, in my opinion. And so you start going through all these different things, and then you realize, well, even in that game, both games, it still comes down to the last play.
Yeah.
And it's easy to just make a bunch of generalizations and say, this, and this about the team. But the truth is, if we get those things fixed, we're winning these games by double digits, which is what happened down the stretch. And I think this playoff, I've said it before, this playoff system allowed us the opportunity to grow and learn about our team and build, which is what you see a lot in the NFL.
Yeah. And by the way, you could take just a microcosm of all those things and how not to do it and how to do it. From one season. That's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. Because a lot of times, many years ago, you wouldn't have gotten that second chance or that third chance or whatever and stuff. Hey,
and I think too, like when you watch Oregon, they had a great year.
Yeah.
But they continued to win all the way, and then they get to the Rose Bowl, and then it was just a different feel there. And not that you don't want to lose a game along the way, but sometimes it allows you an opportunity to address issues with more urgency.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
To have a meeting.
Well, yeah. It gets more real when you go through those things.
Absolutely.
You don't want to go through them, but that's the reality of it. And so, as you look at the new format, it's going to be interesting moving forward how teams adapt throughout the season, and every season takes its own journey along the way.
Yeah. By the way, I don't know if you remember, if you've ever seen that great Vince Lombardi deal where he outlines this basically a 28 or I think it's 47 and 28 where you create an alley. You've ever seen that video? You know what I'm talking about. Would you do that with Travion Henderson's play eventually at a clinic or something? The blocking on that play was ridiculous. Travion's Will's holding the ball as long as he could, flipping it. That's one of the classic executed plays in history, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean,
at the right time.
Yeah.
Understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. And
this wasn't against Marshall.
Yeah. And when you're watching those plays, like, that was a huge play. You just felt the momentum. When you can win the middle eight, which we've talked about all season.
Yeah.
But a play like that, that was a game changer for us. And then obviously the scoop and score, that ball bounced right up into Jack's hands, and that ball didn't quite in that moment bounce up into our hands in the past. And it's like, okay, here we go. We got that positive mojo going. And you have to create your own momentum, because we really didn't have a lot of momentum going into halftime of that game. So for us to execute that screenplay was big. And but also, it's that combination of being aggressive but also being smart. And we felt like for instance in the national championship game, we're up 31-7.
Yeah.
You start to do the math on this. We just take care of the football and run the ball, easy completions. They can't beat us.
Yeah.
And I felt like we had a good drive going, and then we had the fumble with the Mecca, and I was like, okay, this is a change. This is changing, and now we're going to have to go make a play. But I've said it before, in that game, we had decided that if we were in that moment, that we were throwing the ball up to Jeremiah, and that was decided right here in the meeting room before we were even on the field, because those decisions sometimes can become emotional, and so we always say we try to come up with all those different scenarios. Not that you can come up with all of them, but just you want to think it through and make sure everybody's on the same page. And if you have those contingency plans in place, if this happens, what is the plan? And we kind of had a plan for that moment.
I'm sitting there in the press box. I'm going, are they going to be bold right here? Are they going to are they going to put the game away? They're going to get the dagger out. And it's easy to sit there in the press box and go, this is what you should do. But as that unfolded, I would think your eyes were on Jeremiah. Maybe it was on y'all picking up a six-man rush.
Mine was on the middle safety, because I was just trying to see if he was going to go, which way he was going. Because if he did go to Jeremiah, then it was going to Carnell into the boundary. Yeah. And so I know that's where Will was looking. He held him pretty good for his first step, and then 2-3 picked it up, and then it was 42 yards on the red line, is what we call it. It was just well executed.
But I know you've been asked this a million times since then. But to have it go like that, do you ever sit back and go, man, you know what? Karma's a real deal. I mean that we prepared. Will kept his cool. Jeremiah did his thing. You know what I mean? You just executed a play, as Chip like to say.
Yep.
But to have it happen in front of you, is it just? What is that? Is it numbing? What is it like?
Yeah. There's just times where you call a play, and you get what you expect.
Yeah.
And but that's the game too. There's times where you call a play and you don't get what you expect, and then the quarterback scrambles and makes a play and it works. Like for instance, the touchdown to Quinshawn. I remember saying to Will because it was coming out of a huddle. I said, just don't forget about the burst. Don't forget about the burst. Don't forget about the burst, because that's his check down.
Yeah.
Well, he went through 1 and 2, and then Quinshawn runs the burst, but Quinshawn kind of finds himself almost in the middle of the end zone. A burst route was supposed to go like on the line of scrimmage, running back across the field. That's not how we designed the play, but it was a touchdown. He found him, but it was Quinshawn kind of making a play there because he saw a soft spot in the end zone. It wasn't how we drew it up.
Yeah.
But it worked out that way. So, but number one job of a coach is to put him in a situation to be successful, and then you got to let him play. And it's still a game. That's probably the hardest thing for a coach, is that someone asked me, do you like coaching or do you like playing better? I like playing better because I can at least control what was going on.
Yes.
When you're a coach, there's only so many things you can control. You try to control as many things as you possibly can. That's why we see paranoid a lot. But ultimately, you have to just try to let them play. But when you come out of a game, you say to yourself, did we put our guys in a situation to be successful well enough? Yes or no?
Yeah.
And if not, what are the things that we got to do to make sure we do that?
Yeah, that was my favorite thing, is watching Will Howard take control, especially in the postseason. It was crazy. You saw him just step up and stuff. And I even told him at one time, one of my quickies is like, sometimes you just, as a quarterback, you've got the ball, no matter what was called, et cetera, and to see him react like that, it's got to be heartwarming to a certain extent, right? Freeing.
Yeah.
Hey, last couple of things. I know my time's running out. Elevating Brian Hartline, but also Billy Fessler, I think was, in my opinion, a great move. And I'm not just saying it because I'm sitting in your office. Matt Patricia, I think, is a tremendous move because of what he brings. Tyler Bowen, everybody knows his background and stuff. Everybody applauds it and stuff. Do you feel like at this moment you've gone through those waters like Urban Meyer? He and I talked about it, and his wife one time, is replacing those guys that were key components in that coaching staff is what can really wear you out and stuff. But do you feel really, I don't know, do you feel confident about this staff now as you look at it?
Yeah, I'm excited about this staff. There's an energy about it. We met as a leadership committee group with the leaders, Mick and myself, and we went through the goals for the off season. And the first one that we put up, because we agree to it and then we meet as a team. The first one is reinforce the culture. And by the end of the meeting, it was rebuild the culture.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these guys don't know the culture. Coaches, players, a lot of new faces. So, it's almost like starting from scratch again, which is, I think, a really healthy thing to do after a national championship.
Yeah.
And so, the decision by the players was take all the national championship stuff down. We didn't win a national championship. This team hasn't done anything.
Yeah.
And so, but to answer your question, I'm excited about the staff. I think that thought really long and hard about some of the different moves. I think on defense, Tim Walton is somebody that's a huge part of what we do. He's got a great mind. He's a great coach. And so, and then also McArary, Larry Johnson, James Laurinaitis. These are great coaches, and wanted to make sure that we found someone that fit the room.
Yeah.
I feel like Matt brings a great amount of expertise. He's done a lot of things, and he wants to figure out what best fits what we do. Continuing, especially with some of the things that we've done in the back end, he's willing to do that. Even at early on, it's just been a lot of great communication between him and Tim. I think between the two of them, we got a chance to have a really good defense. On offense, I feel like Brian's made a lot of strides as a coach. He did a great job, I think, in the final run with some of the game planning in the passing game. Keenan Bailey and Billy were also a big part of that as well. I thought Billy did a great job. He ran the meetings. Chip was obviously in there and had a huge part in it, but Billy was a big part of those meetings.
Yeah.
And I watched it. I watched the way he worked, and he knows what we do because he was here before. He went away and was a coach, and so I thought to myself, well, I guess we go bring in somebody else and teach him what we do. Or here's a young guy that I think does a great job of speaking our language, understands what we do. And then again for Brian, I feel like he's ready. He's ready to call plays. He's ready to run this thing. But having Tyler there, who's been a coordinator for multiple years, was important for us. And then you look at some of the guys that we brought in to also work in the O-line, Marcus and Coach Dickey.
Right.
It's going to be a good group.
Yeah. Hey, last thing. One of the other things that was new last year, and I've told you about this a couple of times during the season, a few times we got to talk, but I just think your maturity, you never stop learning in this business, I would think, number one. But number two, finally stepping back and being that head coach. You know, for example, did that make these changes easier for you to do if you follow my drift? I mean, do you feel like you've really grown in a year or 2 years' time?
I think that
I'm trying to get to a question there, but I'm trying to get
I know
to the
you're
essence
asking.
of in your head. You know how much not satisfied you are, but even more competent you feel. You know.
I think you chase and you chase and you chase for that first national championship.
Yeah.
And you're involved in every single little thing, everything. And that's not going to change. But I also think that it was important for me to understand, like, I need to hire guys to do their job and then hold them accountable to do their job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think now that, we've established, this championship here, we've established this culture. And, one of the great things was being able to take over from Urban Meyer and having Mick Marotti in place and Mark Pantoni in place and all, But one of the biggest challenges was also having to take over for Urban Meyer.
Yes.
Because you don't just start from scratch. You have to slowly find your own voice, find your own culture, recruit your own guys, bring your staff in. And over time, that's happened. And so there's pluses and minuses to everything. And every year you learn a lot about yourself. And so I got a lot of work to do here. And now, it's about trying to go win the next one. And I think the next few years will look different than the first few years when I was here.
Yeah.
I think that, you look at it from a different perspective. I think we have the right staff in place to be able to, everyone has their job and then holding them accountable as opposed to me being in the details of every single little decision.
Is it pretty weird though? We were asking you, what'd you learn from Coach Meyer? What'd you learn from Chip Kelly? I'm talking about 6 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, what all these guys that now people are going to be asking these coaches, hey, what'd you learn from Coach Day? I mean, what was it? What was the secret there? You do feel like you've kind of crossed over a threshold, right? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, it's certainly significant, obviously, winning one. Again, probably hasn't fully kicked in yet. Because we just go. That's what we do. But I'm just, and a big part of it again is the players, it's the coaches, it's everybody. It's not just myself. I'm just, as I'm the head coach, and I know what comes with that. But it's everybody involved, and I think it's for our players too. Like even the guys that are deciding to come back, and the staff that came back, the confidence that we've been there before. We know what it looks like.
Yeah.
And that's like kind of the standard. And if it's not that, then we need to get it to that. And I think that's something that, if you don't know what it looks like, you're always kind of wondering, you're always questioning. We know what it's supposed to look like. We know what the standard's supposed to look like. We just saw it.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're going to continue to chase.
one bonus question. One of my favorite, maybe might be the right way of terming it, but when you're gathered with your family there on the field after the national championship, and they're telling you this and that, and y'all are hugging, and I know there are tears flowing and stuff, but your son RJ says, "We are so proud of you, Dad." I mean, all that they went through, obviously, being the family of a head coach anywhere is not easy, but especially here and stuff. How does that resonate with you now? I mean, as you look back on it, your son even being able to put it in perspective that, as George Clooney said, "No, brother, we're out there. You were the paterfamilias, the head of the family, and you had delivered for everybody, including your family." I mean,
Yeah.
few people get that feeling, man.
Yeah. I remember when we sat down as a family, I've said this before, the night before the press conference, the family and they were young at the time.
Yeah.
And Nina and I were talking about how this is probably going to be the first young family to come up as the head coach at Ohio State. Most of the head coaches before had older children or whatever.
Yeah. Late 40s.
Yeah. And she started crying. She said, "This is the last day our family will be normal." And she was right.
Wow.
And along the way, my family's had to grow, and the kids have had to get stronger. Nina's had to get stronger, and now they are strong. But there was a point at the end of the season where, as a dad, as a husband, as the coach, it was important for the players, the staff, my wife, and my kids, though, to see me fight for this team and fight ourselves out of that hole. It was important.
Yeah.
It was important for a lot of people, and I think when I see people in public, when I travel around the country and people come up and tell their stories, it's amazing. It doesn't matter where I am. They come up and it usually isn't congratulations, it's thank you. It's really interesting. And thank you for the memories. Thank you for bringing my family together. Thank you. I flew across the country to be with my dad, who was watching that game on TV, and he's since passed. And just unbelievable stories about, and it's just amazing. It makes you realize this is bigger than anybody. Ohio State football is bigger than all of us, but personally, I think, to answer your point about the family, it was important for my kids and my wife to see in a bad spot, when adversity has you backed up against the wall, you got to fight. You got to put one foot in front of the other, and you got to fight yourself out of it. And I told the team that this is a life lesson. There's going to be points along you think this is hard. There's going to be things in all of your lives that's going to be way harder than this. But just go back to this point right here and realize that we all came together. We put a plan together. We recognized where we're all at fault, right? We conceded points, but then we all put our arms together. We came up with a plan, and then we executed our plan, and we put one foot in front of the other. And that's life. Life isn't going to go perfect, but you're ultimately defined by how you handle adversity when it hits in your character. So those were all things that, hopefully my kids, the players, the coaches will all see. But it was all of us. It wasn't just me. And that's one of the other things I said when we were all together. Like, we did this. It wasn't just me. But to your point, as the head of the household, you got to lead the way.
Hey, thank you for joining the
Yeah,
Tim
no
May
problem.
Show.
No problem, man.